So around here, we like to keep things pretty positive for the most part. And even that word is a little bit loaded. I like to think about us as we talk about comics from a realistic standpoint with a positive slant,
Mm.
right? Because we tell the truth about what's going on in the industry, but I feel like we try to be a little bit more hopeful. And maybe that's just our demeanor as people, the way we want to talk about comics. But it's not always like that. And we recently had a conversation with Sal from Comic Pop where we talked about how YouTube and comics, there's some negative outliers. And I want to talk about why it is that in this space, especially, outrage is so pervasive. People love it. You make a video about Spider-Man, right? Why I love Amazing Spider-Man. Maybe it'll do all right depending on the size of your channel. You make a video why I hate Zeb Wells' Amazing Spider-Man. You are going to rake in the views. Now, I would never make a video like that because I happen to love Zeb Wells' Spider-Man, but that is one of the trends that is very effective on YouTube right now.
Mm.
So why do you guys think that works so well?
Well, just in the comic book space, I mean, I think that's prevalent across the board when it comes to YouTube or any kind of search algorithm, honestly. Um, but in terms of the comic book space, I think the idea of nerd rage is a thing. You know, there is a
Mm.
whole Simpsons character based on the comic book nerd who hates the thing he loves. So it is almost an archetype at this point. Um, because even when you hate something and you openly hate it, there is a bit of passion there.
Yeah.
And I think that just that anger can be one of the more infectious emotions, which just, it's like sex cells, anger cells. It's a thing that appeals to people's lizard brains easier.
Yeah.
Um, gushing about something and talking about it in, a critical fashion, might take more brain capacity to listen to or watch.
Yeah. Mm.
I could turn my brain off and just hear someone yell about something, and I'm consuming it, and I can possibly enjoy it. That's not how I like to consume media, but it might just be an easier thing to do.
On the back of that, I think it's also such an extreme. Like you go from a neutral to this large heightened emotion,
Mm.
and that's attracting, that's alluring, rather than sort of staying in. It's stimulating, and that stimulation is necessary, I think, when especially in current economic and current just the way algorithms work. It's trying to get your attention, and so the more dramatic in terms of fluctuation you can get from an emotional standpoint, the more likely it is to be engaged with. It's the algorithm doing a really good job in finding what's going to elicit a reaction, or at the very least it'll associate you sticking around with some kind of reaction.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, for me, the kind of stuff that I grew up on in terms of listening to people talk about comics, when I first started reading, I didn't know anything. And I was like, where can I find other people talking about this? I don't have friends that read comics. I don't know where to go.
Mm.
So I found the IGN. They had, I mean, I don't even know if it was called podcast at that time, but it was a podcast.
Mm.
And it was so good. It was so good. And go ahead, Tyler.
The IGN Comics one
Yeah.
with Joey Esposito, right? I think.
Yes.
Yeah,
But even
great show.
before that, even
Yeah.
before he was the one.
Hmm.
Um, so like that show that they did was not about shitting on anything. It was about talking about comics, reviewing them. They were talking industry stuff and things like that, but it just didn't have a negative bend. And that was my first exposure. So I never wanted to do anything other than sort of that. Like, hey, I want to talk comics. I have friends that like comics. Let's get together and talk comics. That's what this show is. That's what it's about. We don't have like a weird, shitty, bad art comic to sell you. There's no grift. We just want to talk comics. And I feel like a lot of times the channels that are negative, um, that attract those kinds of stereotypical fans, like Tyler pointed out, are doing it because they have something else that they're actually trying to get you to buy.
Mm.
What's so bizarre to me is that you're talking badly about comics that are being published and made that, you think are good or bad, but then you're buying and supporting comics from people who are making objectively worse comic books.
Because you're in their ecosystem, so
Yeah.
you're going to stick around in that ecosystem. And I think the way that people review media is not always to think about it because it uses that brain power, right? So I think we've sort of fostered a community, and we ourselves are friends enough where it's like, hey, we're having a good conversation about a book that's being had. Like, I remember one of the first conversations I'd had with Sean and at another place was about the details and value of Batman's insignia. I'm like, whoa, people think this deeply about comics, and to meet somebody there, to meet somebody who is up there and not have to sift through the, oh, I don't like the bad colors of this thing. I'm like, oh, hold on, there's value here, and I'm interested in that value.
Well, shit, man, I don't remember that conversation, but I'm glad it was a good one.
Yeah, dude, it sold me on like, oh, this is a cool group of people.
Well, and the thing there, I think it fosters actual growth in the hobby. Like,
Yeah.
the people that are that when you listen to just some hate watching stuff, you're not gonna want to read that. You're not gonna want to pick up that comic.
Yeah.
For me, it was iFanboy's podcast. Like I remember I was vivid memory was in college. I was taking a photography course, and I'm in the dark room, like making my prints and my photos, and I had my headphones in, and they were talking about Matteo Scalera's and Mark Waid's Indestructible Hulk at the time, and I think this is when like their whole bit on Matteo Scalera needs to stop, in terms of like he's just too good. That kind of energy of like loving this thing made me pick up that book. Then it made me read more Hulk books, and I was kind of a casual reader at the time. I would read my dad's back issues and Daredevil and stuff like that. But that just was infectious. It made me want to partake in both the hobby as a hobby, but also the community around it. And that inspired me to actually make a podcast. So I don't think that same kind of energy when it comes to hate watching or hate spewing outrage stuff really fosters that kind of creative spark in the listener. Which, if you listen or watch the show and it makes you want to do something, I've done my job. If that's make a podcast, make a YouTube channel, make a comic, I will feel like this was worth it in any sense of the word.
And what's funny is we certainly have had that reaction over the years. We've had a lot of creative people in our community since the get-go. And I don't remember if you guys, Cale and Marco, remember, but there was somebody who used to leave comments like, "Oh, I want to be a creator. Oh, I'm going to be pitching my first," like that whole progression, someone of that nature listening to this podcast, and on some level it inspiring them, whatever it is, that's a beautiful thing. And it's hard for me to imagine that a destructive bend is going to bring people into the fold or inspire or foster, creativity. That's just not how that whole game works. And on top of that, what you're really doing is you're trying to bring people to your channel just to celebrate you, not to celebrate the medium. And maybe in some way that can be more financially fruitful, because you're inspiring people to spend money on you and not on other people's comics. But it's just not the kind of thing that we want to do.
You got to get to YouTube for a financial gain.
Yeah.
It is nice though.
People get into comics for the love of it. People get into YouTube, into comics commentary for the love of it.
Right. One of the things I love so much that we get to do especially on Pals Pulls, is talk about a book that maybe no one else would have read. Like people wouldn't have read it. And then we get on and we talk about it. One of the things the examples I can think of is Beneath the Trees, where nobody sees.
Yep.
We get on there and talk about it, and people are like, "Oh wow, that sounds really interesting. I want to go pick it up." Now they're fans.
Hmm.
Even if it's, let's say, if it's 3 people, that's comic books exist on super small margins. If we turn 3 people onto that book and they ride with it until the end, if the book's $4, they're getting $4 times 3 for the rest of the run.
Yeah.
But if we shit on it and we turn people away from it, or we never discuss it at all, they're not going to know about that book. They're not going to buy that book. It's not going to get supported, at least not by our audience, the people that listen to us.
Yeah.
Well, and even the stuff that we do, that we personally speak sort of negatively about, it's within the lens of criticism,
Right.
So, just for the sake of timeliness, for this week, Wonder Woman #6 just came out, and Sean and I didn't like it. The overall content, the art's obviously fantastic. Daniel Sampere is a god. But we felt that Tom King committed some cardinal sins of comic book storytelling, in that he's having characters say on the page exactly what's happening in the art. Now, if you're, someone who is a new creator, or even a new comic book reader, that's something that, you're not going to hear from that's something that you're not going to hear from someone who's just bashing a comic book to bash a comic book. So in that instance, you've learned something. You've learned to look out for something, and that's huge, especially if you're a new creator, because it can help you create better comic books.
It's the difference between, addressing the merits of the book and saying, I'm sick of seeing Wonder Woman be Wonder Woman. I don't want this because it's Wonder Woman. You know what I'm saying? That's not a critique of the book. That's your personal hatred of X getting in the way of, does this work or not?
Yep. Yeah.
And I think when it comes to the criticism aspect of comics, outrage doesn't do anything for me either, because they're the ones making the comics. In my mind, they've already put out the work and they did the work. They're better than me already. I cannot bash someone for creating art. Content and how they distribute that art, maybe. But, when it comes to the Wonder Woman stuff, or stuff maybe I don't like, because I like the Wonder Woman book, but I think it's always imperative to kind of talk about it from I don't want to say the criticism sandwich that people always talk about, but there's always parts of it that are good, and highlighting the good and maybe the not so good, I think, is important, with language that is constructive rather than I don't like this. That's too surface level for me when it comes to critiquing stuff. There's got to be a why to everything, and honestly, there should be a why to the why as well.
What's funny though, when you say that, Tyler, I think some of my favorite critiques from you specifically, are when you go, I really like this. And that, because when you say that, and you've always done this from the long box days, I've always looked for that seal of approval, because there's a deep satisfaction to it with it's just in the way you say it. It's just, I really like this.
Well, it helps when you start from an audio perspective, and you have to work on the sound of things. But no, and I really like that you said that, Cal. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not to say that you cannot critique. I am a big believer in, criticism is a necessary function of really everything. So I'm not only say the good thing, but I am say the truth, but be responsible about what it is that you're saying and how you say it and things like that. Look, the outrage clicks are there. They're always going to be there. We could put out a video. Look, if we put out a video that says, the comics industry sucks right now, here's how we would make it better. That same subject that we're talking about, right? We're probably going to have that conversation. When we do the state of the industry conversations, there's absolutely negative things in there, but the title's not going to be why the comics industry sucks.
Yeah.
Because I don't want, and we don't want to say the comics industry sucks. I don't think that. I don't want to say that. Will it get me more views to say that? Might. But I just don't want to say that. So you just have to strike a balance. And I think it's incumbent upon creators, but it's also incumbent upon fans. There are people in this audience that I happen to know also watch channels that do the bad thing, right?
Yeah.
And channels that have made videos about us.
Yep.
Shitting on us.
And have come into our channel on videos.
And the only reason that they're shitting on us is because we don't shit on the industry. Literally. There is no criticism. What is the criticism? It's only because we don't shit on the industry. So my challenge is, if you like comics, if you enjoy the industry of comics, then you should seek out channels who also enjoy them. There can be critical of them, have insightful discussions, but if loving comics is not the baseline of the channel, you're probably not in the right place. And if you think you're in the right place, then this is not the right place for you.
Well,
I would also extend that. Challenge yourself to think positively about comics, no matter what you're reading. If you're, please.
I was going to say positively, but critically at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. Yeah.
And if even if it's something you don't like something, drop it, pick up the next thing. Just speak positively about the things you like. Give those air.
Like, there's no chance in hell, right, that you are a fan of the medium of comics, and at some point you were like very, very engaged with buying comics. There's no way in hell that you look at the industry as it is now and you say there's nothing on the stands for me.
Yeah.
If that's the case, the whole medium has passed you by, and you should find something else to like.
That angle in particular is, they don't make any good comics anymore, or that things have been worn to the end. Then you're obviously not invested in the books, because guaranteed the art will connect with you regardless of the era, regardless of your age, regardless of your demographic. If it's art, and if it's good art, there's so much good art out there, something's gonna hit you, connect with you. And if you aren't connecting with that, or you're only connecting with a small curated bubble that thinks like you, then you're not challenging yourself to experience the full breadth of art. And I think you have to reevaluate that.
Yeah, like, there's just no way that the only good comic on Earth is Cyberfrog, right? Like, even if you like it, whatever, like it, whatever. But it can't be that that's the only good book, right? Like, there has to be something that Marvel, DC, Image, Boom are putting out that is in your wheelhouse. And if that's not the case, maybe you're not a fan of comics.
Yeah.
You might be a fan of hating things, which then that's a discussion outside of the comic book YouTube discussion.
And Cyberfrog.
Yeah.
Damn, you got us.
We'll leave it there.
You're getting us on another thumbnail, Sean. I swear to God, it's gonna be me and you again.
Dude, I couldn't give a fuck less, to be honest with you. I really like.
Honestly,
that
I could
stuff
make a
is
better
cool.
thumbnail.
Don't crop me out.
Again, but even still, we got some of their followers.
Yeah.
Because of our attitude. Like, we want to be nice. We want to talk about the things we love.
In the spirit of that, are there any other podcasts or media, TikTok creators, anyone that you would recommend? I mean, Comic Pop, obviously.
Yeah. Comic book couples counseling.
They're good. It's a niche that they tackle. It's very good. Yeah.
There's a channel that I really like called Comics Are Dope.
I like that name.
Yep. And I don't know the name of the guy that runs the channel off the top of my head, but he's a good dude. And I just really love the angle that he takes talking about comics. It's a one-man show, and it's really good stuff. So that would be my one. Comics are dope.
I think mine might be the writers panel by Ben Blacker.
Ooh,
It used to be the comics writers panel, but they've sort of branched off into speaking more broadly about writing. But it's just, it's just good, solid. It's good critique, but it's also good, good for speaking to people in the industry and getting a look at what happens behind the scenes and how to make things work and how things happen.
Sorry, go.
The Comics Collective podcast. I remember over the summer there was a Kelly Thompson interview they did that was just so well done, talking about like the craft of comic creating, and writing in general. Like that's the stuff I eat up when you can talk about the medium almost transcending the medium in a way. And it's just infectious, that kind of stuff. And like they're younger than us, so it's just like, oh man, it's good stuff seeing that.
The last one on my end was pop culture philosopher Robbie. I think he comes it from a really good critical perspective, and when he's negative, he starts out with just like, I'm not here to denigrate. This is critical, and maybe I'm not feeling it. And I think that's always ultimately one of the notes that we end up relying on is, I didn't like it. That does not mean anything for you.
I think of when Sean talking about gods. Like I think you like Sean, you don't really care much for gods right now, but you understand that it could still be a good book. It could still be crafted well, but it's just not for me.
At the end of the day, this is all opinion, and I think the problem comes in when you make your opinion a fact.
Yep.
So, try not to do that. Try to enjoy comics. They're fun. They're good when you let them be. And not all of them are good, and we could talk about that. But the industry at large can't be bad. That's just nuts. Like, not all movies are bad. Not all TV shows are bad. Like, you have ones you like and ones you don't. And the ones you don't, you probably don't spend time talking about. You probably just watch the ones you like. Like, I don't watch Dancing with the Stars, but I don't have a podcast dedicated to my hatred of Dancing with the Stars. Just don't watch it.
And even the bad stuff can still be likable.
Hopefully you like this. And if you do, subscribe. We're on the road to 2,000 subscribers. Maybe you're watching this and we've already eclipsed that. Either way, hit the subscribe button. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Like the video. We'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care, guys.